We know many things are made or manufactured in America, but what does the meaning of made in America really mean? Find out how one equipment supplier has found new meaning in the phrase made in America and how he intends to seek new markets and branding with the sticker everyone is so familiar with. We delve into the process, who regulates it, and some history of these three words, which have been woven into our American culture. Get ready to level up your powder coater game. Welcome to the Powder Coater Podcast. I'm Kim Scott, your host, where we talk about trending topics, interview interesting people like our guest today. Brandon has actually been on the show before. And Brandon, you're with Titan Sandblasting, right? Titan
Right.
Equipment. And your main business is sandblasting and building sandblasting equipment and selling it across America. And you were also featured on our 50th episode where we talked about, how to go and, invest in the right equipment for your processes. So I just want to say welcome back. It's good to see you. It's been a little while.
It has been a little while. Thank you for having me back on.
Yeah, of course. How has Titan been doing? Since we last talked about a year or so ago.
Going good. We're growing. We're changing continually, coming out with new products, updating our existing products. So we try to always keep it going, keep innovating, and keep updating our stuff.
Right, and that leads us to today's topic, right? Because it kind of plays a little bit into that in some of the products that you're. I don't know if it's all your products, but some of your products. Today, we're going to be talking about your transformation to getting a Made in the USA sticker or a certification. I'm not sure. What is it exactly?
Mainly just like a designation that you have that you're made in the USA, that you can call yourself that.
Right.
Many people,
you see it on clothes, right?
Yeah.
Lots of people see it on clothes. That's very important to us. Of course, I think in general, Americans are very proud of our manufacturing base. So what drew you to try to do this and try to go for this designation?
I probably mainly a pride thing, knowing that, like a lot of Americans making things, and just, for us and just in general, sick of seeing everything seems to not be made here anymore. At one point it used to be, and it seems like everything you pick up nowadays says made in China. It's just a little troubling.
It is. Yeah. I mean, because we were, great manufacturers. Now we seem to be pushing a lot of paper around in the financial districts and stuff like that. We're more about that and less about making things. But I think I'd like to say, and maybe you'll agree or disagree. Do you think that's going to change in the future, or is it changing now?
I think it's changing. It's starting to change now. There seems to be a bigger push now for bringing things back into the States. I think COVID actually helped that. With manufacturing, people realizing that it's better to have things made here. Ourselves included. The lead times that COVID dumped on everyone, and the supply chains were just like phenomenal. I don't think anyone could have imagined that. So it was a little eye opener for people, realizing that I think it's better to have things made stateside.
Yeah, kind of maybe a positive out of COVID, or if you could say it was, terrorizing. I think that, I don't know. It's possible we may have some future epidemic or pandemic like we did. It makes kind of good business sense to kind of think that through. And that's what we're going to talk about, is what were your challenges in getting what we're going to call now MUSA. Is it MUSA? Is that what the short word for it? It's made in the USA. And some of the key lessons that you learned, and so what, did you pick up a phone call, or like, did you make a phone call to some government agency, or who runs the show back behind the scenes?
The main part of the main work was just trying to source the products. Is probably where I guess the first step is finding out if it's something you want to do or not. Like
well, that's
for us,
good. Yeah.
we want to do it, and knowing there's a lot of time you're going to invest in it, sourcing those products. And is it the direction you want to go in? Is it good for your customers? Does it mean something to them? Is it going to be beneficial to your business? Before going down that road. So yeah, we spend a lot of time and continually do trying to source products, new products, any products that we have that aren't U.S. made now, trying to find new ones to replace those. Takes a lot of time.
And so is it a government agency that gives you that designation, or is it, I don't understand that part of it though.
No, they're kind of just keeping an eye. They didn't used to do anything before, really. They just put it out there like, in order to say you're made in the USA, you have to have, at one point it's like 50% of your product has to be made in the US, which is really not that much.
Right.
The 50% in my mind is kind of a failure, from school days, 50% doesn't get you much.
Well, that's true, right? When you think about it from that perspective, right? You're like, what?
So at least they're increasing those numbers, which is good. I believe now we're up to about 65%. I think that just started this year. They took it up to 65% has to be made in the U.S. to be able to call yourself that. And the enforcement has begun more now, especially online, where everyone wanted to jump on it and start saying that, we're made in the U.S., put the American flag on there and like to try and sell it. And now they're finding out, they're starting to look into people and find that people are not. They're just claiming that something's made in the U.S. and it's not made in the U.S.
Right.
So that's good that they're starting to crack down on it, so that it has some credibility behind it, and trustworthiness, that you don't have just people claiming it just to try and, as a marketing ploy.
Yeah. And I agree with you. You just, I think Americans have just know that means something to them, versus something that says made in China, right? It just doesn't translate the same way in our brains, right? And it's not just about marketing though. You know what I mean? It's about our culture. It's about who we are as a nation. There's a lot more behind that sticker or that phrase, right?
Yeah.
And so, it's, I guess, China is useful in some sense of the word, right? It helped us grow as a country, financially, and because we're such a consumer-based economy anyways, right? So but it just somehow doesn't translate to be the same. So I'm not sure how.
And it does nothing to really help us as a country or our manufacturing sector. It doesn't, by buying things from other countries, especially China, or countries that don't play by the same rules that we do. It would be different if cost cutting and subsidies from the government, letting people sell things for below cost, like, makes it really difficult for people to compete, and that's not really fair. It'd be the same thing. We could do the same thing if all of a sudden, the government decided to give us a ton of money and say, hey, sandblast equipment, make it all, sell it everywhere, and we'll give you 50% of the cost. So now all of a sudden we can sell it for less than it costs us to make it. Yeah, how do you compete with someone who can do that?
Well, isn't that socialism, right? You know what I mean? That's kind of where, that's where that's that line, right? Gray area where it goes into. We already have it in farming, but that's different because we're feeding people. Maybe in my mind, it is different because we're feeding people, and we feed, we feed other nations too, with and animals and stuff. So it seems like everybody's okay with drawing a line there for subsidies and stuff. But when it comes to like manufacturing and stuff, it's really, you're kind of on your own as a business.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I think hands off on business is good, but it's always good to have something that says made in America because, it's a trustworthy phrase.
Yes. And
Yeah.
it means a lot, and it always has. When people buy that, they know, they see that label on there, they think, okay, I'm buying a quality product. I know it was here, it's going to last. You have the longevity. I would say the made in China designation has that exact opposite. You just know, okay, someone got that cheap.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah,
That's
exactly.
got it cheap, and hopefully so cheap I'll be able to buy another one when that one breaks.
Yeah. And let's talk about that for a second because, in past episodes, I've done trends, right?
Mhm.
And nothing is so extreme than being on an island because you only have one landfill and everything goes in it, right? We have no
Uh-huh.
way. I mean, there was at some point, I think Oahu does ship stuff away, some trash away from its
Mhm.
island because there's a million people living there alone. But for us, we have lots of land. So everything kind of goes in. Of course, they're trying to negotiate a more long term memorial type. Well, I don't even want to call it memorial, but for those that had passed away in the Lahaina fires,
Mhm.
they wanted some sort of like final resting place because that some people were just burned to ashes. And I hate to get gruesome here, but it's been a kind of a contentious issue about where to put all of the debris, some of which people may still be,
Mhm.
parts of them
Yeah.
will be
In
in
those
there,
rackets.
right?
Yeah.
And stuff. So there's always been this kind of like there is a human level to it,
Mhm.
that we've never experienced before. But that aside, typically, we feel that China factor here in the sense that, when you buy a lanai set or a patio set from Home
Mhm.
Depot, we can't restore that set, like you could if you bought like a Tropatone higher end USA made, because
Uh-huh.
they have that six designation as well. And we can't we can't find replacement parts or end caps or glides for China made stuff. A lot of the slings the way they design these chairs and
Mhm.
tables, they're not meant to be pulled apart and put back together, and
No,
so,
they're, yeah, one
yeah,
time. One
one
time
time.
assembled, and the next time it goes in the trash.
Right, and it's within the design itself
Mhm.
of the chair that they just slide it in, and you're never if it breaks, you go to Home Depot and you just throw that other one away. So it's a very linear
Yes.
system, right? They make
Mhm.
it, we use it, we throw it away.
Yes.
And I think that, and maybe this is where you guys can come into place because you make and manufacture replacement parts for all of your equipment. And
Mhm.
that's what Made in America really, really is about, right? Is, I want to pay more for that furniture or for that sandblasting unit. I'm just using furniture because I know that, but
Mhm.
like, you want to be able to find either aftermarket parts for it or some other, I want to go back to the manufacturer and maintain my equipment or my patio furniture or whatever, right? So there is something more beyond just the name itself or the feeling that someone gets.
Yes. Mhm. And more than that, we can't just become a disposable society where
Right.
everything you buy, we just buy it, use it, throw it out.
We
That's
can't.
It's
Yeah.
going to catch up at some point.
I mean, we only have so much room on the planet for
Mhm.
landfill
Yep.
stuff, right? We could just
Yeah.
keep burying it in the ground,
Yes.
you know.
We'll all be living on
the
top of
the
garbage.
aliens underneath the ground are upset at us, right? Stop throwing trash on my house. But can I ask? I'm going to ask you a little trivia question because
Sure.
you may not be able. We can always Google it too if we don't know.
Okay.
And when do you happen to know when they first started using this phrase "Made in America"?
Hmm. I don't know when. I would
Okay,
think it's
I'm
been a
gonna.
while.
I'm googling it.
And I think
Okay.
it's just probably wasn't popular before because I think a lot people assumed it was because everything used to be made in America. So there
Right.
really wasn't a need to really even have a phrase. You just assumed it was made here. You bought it. Yeah, of course it's made in America. We live in America. It's made here.
Right. Right.
I think that phrase has been around. It just got popular.
It did. And you know what else too?
Decades.
Like in Europe, when you look at, you buy China and, like teacups or whatever,
Mhm.
right? The maker's mark, right? It's kind of like a signature or a symbol of where you were, where you worked, or what you're using, right? In terms of like, how hoity-toity are you? I can afford this, brand, or this, manufacturer, or this whatever, maybe it kind of started like that. And maybe it was a way for America to kind of compete against European, because we're really rather competitive with Europe
Mhm.
in a very underpinning kind of way. We're always trying to, they always look at us Americans as, well, we go back hundreds of years. You guys are just new kids on the block,
The
right?
baby, yeah.
Right. And so maybe it was a way for us to kind of like counter that, right? Like, oh, well, we're the new guys and we need to look sharp here because it's made in America. We do everything. But I think the most important thing that I've ever seen made in America is when we get and I want to say when we get the privilege, okay, because it doesn't happen very often, but when somebody has like a 1920s or 1930s Model A or Model T car and they want their rims done, the spoke rims,
Uh-huh.
when you get to strip those and blast them down to the bare metal and you see that welding, it's so perfect. It is so perfect. I wish I could show you. I have pictures of of some of them that we've done. We've only done a few handfuls of them, but there's not a lot here,
I
but
think only a limited number on the island.
right. But I feel so privileged to look at that, to know, to me, that's made in America. And that's what it means. It's like the welds were so perfect. They made it to last forever.
Yeah.
Right.
And
And
the quality and the pride that went into it.
yeah.
It seems like everyone was a craftsman. Everyone had that trade, and they were
Yeah.
craftsmen and cared about what they did to be the best at what they did. I think we've lost a lot of that. Now it's kind of just do it to get it done.
Yeah. Nothing takes me back.
Mhm.
Nothing takes me aback more than looking at that raw metal, steel, and how thick it is and how well, every weld is that whoever that man was, that made that,
Yep.
Some of the other things too, and I still want to Google this while we're talking, but like when it started, but like the whole World War II thing, my mom worked on the B-52s, and there was a lot of pride that went into the B-50, not just B-52s, but every aircraft that they were making, or every ship they were making, or whatever, just to support the war. That to me is made in America. That's the symbology I see,
Mhm.
and stuff. But okay, so let's talk about how how did you go, and what were the steps that you took to achieve this designation, made in America, and what were the first steps that you did, and how many steps are there? Is it just exhaustive, or how long did it take you?
It's not a whole lot of stuff. It's mainly just sourcing all those products, to make sure your things, all your components that you're buying are sourced and made in origin in the United States. So that's your real time consuming part.
Yeah.
It's not really that involved other than finding your the products and sourcing them and getting things here. But those components can be extremely tricky, some of them, especially electronic components. We had to have a heck of a time with lighting, LED lighting.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, all LED lights are made overseas. we did find a company that makes them here, but that probably took us the longest. That was the hardest thing. And there's some small electronic components that we still are not 100%. we can't. There's certain things that just are not made in this country, and you cannot
Right.
find them.
Right.
You're buying them overseas.
I'm on a Wikipedia, not that I don't know if I can trust Wikipedia, but like I guess it's regulated by the Federal Trade Commission.
Mhm. Yep.
So did you have to talk one-on-one with them, or that's how you kind of picked up the phone and started calling them or contacting them on that? They must have a page of some sort.
Yeah, and there's not, to my knowledge, there's not necessarily a certification that they give you. More of
Hmm.
just their, if you're making that claim, you need to make sure you are made in the USA, that you're following their stipulations,
Yeah.
uh, that you're not just making that claim that you're made in the US and not, because they can come after you, and they have
Right.
started to do it. They've gotten a couple of, I think, large companies I've heard that have were claiming things made in the USA and they're not, um, and had some big issues and got some serious fines.
And is there a difference between assembled in the USA versus made in America, or is that pretty much
And that's
synonymous?
a kind of like a word play, and I think it's everyone trying to capitalize off that,
Hmm.
the use of the American flag on their product, and that
Yeah.
that that term. So they're trying to spin off that term rather than like made in the USA. Like our stuff, some of it is designed in the US. Um, they're assembled in the US from foreign components, but that that doesn't really help us in manufacturing.
Right. Right.
Oh, we brought in all these cheap parts from China, but we put them together here. Like,
Well, yeah, I mean, Ross and I would always refinish furniture back in the day, right? And we every now and then we'd look at, there'd be a sticker on the stuff we
mhm.
were refinishing, and sometimes it would say Hensho in China. Like
Yeah.
it was like a Spanish word,
Uh-huh.
Hensho, which is made, but then it would say in China. So we were like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
Right? So I'm going to hopefully get to the bottom of that in the next coming weeks when I talk about, have another guest on talking about nearshoring and stuff like that. So we kind of giggled about what that was. Um, but it seems like the first, I guess, what they're saying on this Wikipedia is that in 1926, the Ford Model T hubcap actually said it's an embossed hubcap with
Mhm.
the word Ford on it, and then below it said made in America. So I think that's where it kind of started, but
Yeah.
really in 1997 um, is kind of when they went toe to toe, and started
Mhm.
creating more. The FTC started making requirements and stuff like that. So probably to kind of counter a lot of the loss, perhaps,
Yeah.
from China.
From
Hmm.
China, yeah, because it probably wasn't big for, it was the 80s. I think it was Reagan that was the big on the globalization that put it in. So it took time for that
Nixon,
before, hey,
Nixon
let's
too.
start buying stuff everywhere else. It's going to
Right.
help everyone. But it takes years for that to go into effect, and
Yeah.
really where you see it. Maybe you think it's good at first, and then it kind of backfires. So it probably took a while before people saw that,
Yeah.
and then before you really needed a designation of made in the US.
Right. I know that it really hurt the powder coating industry too, because a lot of people lost jobs to China in
Uh-huh.
powder coating back in the 80s and 90s and stuff. They started closing a lot of factories and
Wow.
stuff because it was all going to China. And actually, to be honest, even today, China does about 36% of the global supply of powder coatings.
Wow.
Yeah, kind of crazy that,
Uh-huh.
and it's because they make products that they powder coat, right?
Yeah.
So it would make sense that they have the largest amount of share of all global powder coatings.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you kind of
So,
had, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, so even though we don't think of it in the manufacturing, you're thinking more of products, cars, and but we also fall under the big push now of drugs. even especially generic drugs. Like it's unbelievable the amount of generic drugs that are not made in this country. China and India, I think we're over 80, somewhere between 80 and 90% of the drugs come from elsewhere, which is
Wow.
really, really frightening.
Right? Yeah.
I'd rather have a foreign hubcap than a foreign medication.
Right? Like what
Car, yeah.
it's kind of funny because you're actually trusting the doctor and the healthcare system,
Mm-hmm.
not questioning where the drug is coming from, right? And I
Yeah.
mean, nothing more clear than the fentanyl crisis we have now in the
Uh-huh.
country, right?
Yeah.
And stuff. So
Yeah. And do you want your cell phone made in a dirty factory, or do you want your pharmaceuticals made in a dirty factory?
right. Yeah. So when did you, okay, so how soon or how long ago did you get this designation, and how has it affected your business, or kind of can we take it into that?
Um, yeah, it's affected us in that we get people that are, they see it and they're sourcing those products. So they're coming to us and we get a lot of comments on, oh, we like the fact that you're made in the U.S. So it does
It is
hold
important.
value to our equipment. Not only are they knowing they're getting a good quality product, but a lot of people like to keep that support the country, buy things made here and support the jobs.
Yeah.
So I think that does definitely means a lot to people, and we have quite a few sales that I would say are based off of that. Having that designation has definitely been a help to us.
Have you, and so most of your sales are from are relied on from other US companies. Are you selling abroad with the USA made? I mean, that'd be kind of interesting.
We
I'm going to bring up your website right now.
We do sell some overseas. Majority of our business is in the States.
Yeah.
And just because of our equipment in general is large, heavy, fairly expensive to ship around the world.
Yeah.
But we do occasionally, and it means that we're not in other countries. People know that they know the made in America. They know it's a good quality product that they're getting. So it's not just Americans that know that and want our own products, but the rest of the world knows that too.
Right. I'm going to pull up your website here real quick. I'm checking you out, making sure you've got your Made in America flag on there.
Yeah.
And there it is, right in the footer. But I don't know, like, to me, I would put it right here front and center, like, or even a tab up here, like, we are made in America, because that's going to be a huge trigger for people when they land on your website.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And stuff. I mean, this is nice to have all these famous companies down here and stuff like that. But so how long ago has it been since you got it?
Well, it's probably been a few years, a couple of years now.
A couple of years.
But it's something we've always kind of done, but it used to be easy. Like, my uncle started the company in the 50s, 1953. So
right.
It's kind of obvious back then you made everything in the US. And we did at that point, and then it just, I guess, changed with more components. The more involved our systems got, the more components they required, then the kind of outsourcing began,
right.
Bringing things in from elsewhere. So kind of like a switch back to the roots, of keeping it made in America, where you start, sourcing things elsewhere and you kind of go a different direction, and I just kind of brought it back.
Do you think that there's some possible negative connotations with Made in America in terms of costing and pricing? Like, I mean, I guess that would be like, oh, it's made in America, it must be really expensive, kind of thing. Have you managed to maintain your costs and price still with the designation, or has some of I know that's a delicate question to ask you, Brandon, but
it affects pricing. Obviously American made components are more costly than foreign components. some more than others, some a lot more than others. There's some products that just don't make sense for us to source in the States, just because we know our customers and know they're not going to pay
Right.
that one
Too
small
absorbent.
component. Like,
Yeah.
okay, now all of a sudden it's triple the price here, and they're like, no, they're not. Doesn't mean that much to them that they're going to pay triple for that same thing, as long as that some of the things function the same. If it's a let's say a ball valve, if there's not much to it, it's going to function the same, but someone's not going to pay triple for that.
Yeah, and that's why how you can kind of manage that a little bit and keep your
Mm-hmm.
costs still reasonable, or almost the same as stuff is like, yeah, you can go and get that somewhere else, maybe in another country or whatever, without, and you have that choice or that perception or perceptiveness to kind of keep it, know where to put those and play it, I
Yep.
guess, in a
Yep.
sense.
Know what components are worthy of that.
Worthy. Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
word.
Of getting the sourcing here, or is it like, if it's foreign, it's not going to make that big of a difference. And foreign means, it also depends on where it's coming from. Not everything comes from China. Not everything is like cheap junk.
Right. Yeah.
We do get other components from other countries. We get some components from Italy, from Germany, which are
Yeah,
good.
they
So
make
the
exceptions.
quality is not questioned on there.
Yeah.
And it's price is not always there. Sometimes it's usually the Chinese stuff that's really the cheap end of it. And in our world too, not everything works if it's cheap, especially in the abrasive blasting world.
Right.
Our
I
stuff's
mean,
got to be durable. It takes a beating. It's kind of self-destructive. So we have to really pay attention to what the quality of everything, especially anything that comes in contact with that blast stream, is going to take a beating.
right. And so, like, how do you feel? I want to ask you more a personal question. Like, how do you feel as a business owner um, in getting this made in America on your stuff? Like, now that you've gone through that process, I mean, obviously there was some difficulty at first trying to source
Mm-hmm.
stuff, but how do you feel about it personally now? And how does do your employees care, or do can you get into some of that internal dynamics?
Yeah, as a whole, I would say it's everyone has that same pride here. Um, I know it means it's one of the favorite things here is when that piece of equipment is finished, is putting our name on it. When it's on that final assembly, putting our name on it and putting that American flag sticker on there, means a lot. And I'd say yes,
Yeah.
it means a lot to everyone here. And that definitely is a pride thing. Personally, and as a company, we try to buy as much as we can that is also American made. Whether it's components, obviously components for our own equipment to make, and just things we need for
Right.
our building, for our shop, for our offices. We try to always source. If we can do it, we try to buy American, as much as we can.
Yeah, it's kind of almost changed your entire culture in a sense,
Yes.
is what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. And so, and how has it specifically affected quality control in that sense? Like, who gets to put the sticker on? I want to know. Is it you?
I do a lot of stickers. I put a lot of stickers on. Yeah.
That's the best part, right? Putting the
Yeah.
sticker on there, right?
Yep. Doesn't matter that it took the poor guy, 3 days to assemble it, and then I come out 2 seconds and put the sticker on. I'm like,
Oh man, I can totally visualize that too, right? Like the guy's looking up at you going,
dang,
damn
3 days
it.
I spent building this. You came out and slapped the sticker on. Great.
Have you had to do any kind of other, like in your quality control, have you had to take any extra steps in that division or that department to, in that sense? Is there any other regulation that you have to abide by in terms of assembly?
Not on assembly, no. The quality, I'd say the quality's going up because now we're having better components to start with.
Right.
So it makes that aspect easier. Where you're not takes kind of the wonder out of it. Like, oh, or is this batch going to be good? That's the problem with other overseas components and cheap stuff is what's it.
Right.
One might be good, but you got a box of 50 and you're like, well, half of them might be good.
Yeah.
Which half are, what are the good ones, what are the bad? And you're testing all that. With American stuff, better quality components.
You don't question it, about that. Right? And let's face it, I mean, a lot of these shops, job shops and stuff that need and require blasting, I mean, when you're buying something like that, it's pricey to begin with, and you're looking for a return on your investment, your capital investment. I personally would be, being that I am American, and I'd be looking for that, because I know that hopefully at some point I'm going to get that return anyways, and I want to make that long call, right? That long-term investment and stuff. It's important, because you don't want to have to replace that blaster in a long, long time.
Yes. Yep. All components. Yeah. And our equipment is not cheap. Not most sandblasting equipment is not cheap. So you definitely want to, it's an investment, and you want that investment to last.
Right. How has
much better to have that components that can be replaced rather than, you're replacing a component rather than replacing that piece of equipment.
Yeah, exactly. How has the relationship building, has it changed at all, or your marketing? Let's talk about your marketing and stuff with now that you have this designation. Have you made any changes to it? Do you kind of put it front and center, or do you kind of just say, yeah, that's who we are, we're over here,
It's a big part of our marketing.
Yeah.
It's a big part of our marketing and our marketing companies. Our marketing company that does a lot.
Ross is getting in the blast suit right now. Just for you guys listening, we're laughing because Ross is putting on his. I left my window open, but why?
Maybe that wasn't a good idea.
It's like watching it. He's getting dressed in the dressing room. I mean, he doesn't know I'm interviewing you today at all.
We're wondering why dressing rooms don't have glass doors.
Oh my gosh. There's always a laugh on the show. I tell you, Brandon, it doesn't matter who or what. And I mean, he has been working himself up to this. He blasted yesterday. But seriously, like, he has to mentally work himself up to do it, right? Because right now we're on a bare bones crew. There he goes off to the blast room. I mean, it's just so funny how the podcast works out for me sometimes, but I mean, you want to make sure that when your blaster is going in there, your guy on the floor that has to go in and we call it the beach. We go to the beach.
Yep.
And it's not like literally going to the beach, right? But he has to gear himself up mentally to do it. There are guys out there that absolutely that's all they want to do all day long, right? Is just do that, right? And and I love those guys. I wish every company could have a guy, but a lot of times, we're talking about stuff you don't want to do.
Yeah.
And you need to make it as comfortable and reasonable and safe as you possibly can, so do you have anything to add to that?
Unfortunately, blasting is usually the thing that not many people want to do.
Right? Yeah.
It's not, it's far from easy. It's quite a workout. That's a big part of our job here too. When we get people buying blast rooms, and there's that big divide between the people doing the blasting and the people who buy the equipment.
Yes. Let's talk about that.
Equipment. Let's get like the biggest storage hopper we can get. So when that guy's blasting, it doesn't stop. He can be in there 8 hours just straight blasting. I'm like, yeah, that's not going to happen. I mean, it might go great for the first week, and then you're going to be looking for a new blaster.
Exactly. Right. And It's not a job that, I mean, I don't know, you may disagree with this, but like it's not a complicated job. The equipment might be slightly
Mhm.
complicated or getting it all set up and getting it just dialed in and stuff. But like, for the typical guy that's in there, they just want to put on their headphones and just duck out on life, get rid of their frustration. I mean, that's where I hear a lot of it is like you just drop out and you
Uh-huh.
can get
Yep.
away from your life or your problems or your whatever, and you get into it, and you're looking for that white metal, and you're looking for that perfect raised surface for whatever it is your next project's going to, whatever the next phase of that project's going to be, right? So um
Make it your happy place. You
yeah,
know,
right, yeah, and it's not
that help-
easy.
put that helmet on your. It's kind of like a sensory deprivation tank. You're isolating yourself. You put the helmet on, you don't hear anything else. You kind of get in your own world.
I had one guy reach out to me and let me know that he listens to the podcast while he's sandblasting,
Ah, ah,
you know? So that I thought that was really cute of him nice of him to say about that, like, hey, it's, because we're usually on for like at least an hour or so,
ah,
and it's kind of a way for him to kind of stay focused on powder coating and whatever it
mm,
is he's doing next, but
yeah.
I thought that was very nice of him to say that or share that with me, right? Um, so let's wrap up the show here. What do you think are your key takeaways for any company that is thinking about doing this?
I would say first is questioning that choice. Is it something you want to do? Is it something that's going to be beneficial to the company, beneficial to your customer? Does your customer care? Is going to
Yeah,
make that difference. Are they? Hey, if we make that designation, we're American made now, knowing there's a lot of work behind it. You want to make sure that that effort is worth it. Is it going to? Is it a pride thing for you to do it? Is it a financial thing? Do you think you're going to gain more customers from it? It would be nice if more people did it. For the country, it'd be
right.
nice if everything was made in America.
Yeah,
That would be nice. But as a business, um, you have to run your business. You have to stay profitable. You have to stay in business. So those
right.
decisions kind of change a little bit. It can't all be about pride. If pride's great, but if you just cost you too much and you can't stay afloat, that's not good either. So yeah, I definitely want to think about if that makes a difference to your customer. Buying American made will. If you have the time, the staff. To
Right.
go down that road, it's going to take. Just know that that's where your biggest time is going to be. The hardest thing is going to be sourcing components, and it depends on who you are. If you have, you're building a machine that has 10 components, you're building a machine that has 1,000 components.
Right.
It's going to take some time to source all those, and no, you're not going to hit 100%. Virtually impossible to get everything made.
Right.
But just know
Yeah.
there's going to be a lot of research.
Research and stuff. And
Uh-huh.
what are your contingencies, or if you've even crossed that, yet, was if you lose one of these parts, like say the factory that you're relying on for some component drops you below that 65% level, what will you do? You know,
That's probably one of the harder things too, where it used to be, we always had backup vendors for, every component, and it wasn't uncommon to have two, three, four vendors for a component in case one wasn't in stock or something happened or the
hmm
pricing went crazy. I always had a backup. Well, now that when that component has to be made in America, that really limits that. So now you're right. We do have components that are, we only have a single source for them.
yeah,
Um, so that becomes tricky. Some of the components we used to purchase, we now make
yeah,
because
okay,
either couldn't find them or it just was too costly, that we decided to take it on ourselves, and now we designed it and make it. But
yeah, and
we
there's additional costs there with that
Mhm.
too as
Yep,
well. Yeah,
and we
so
can't
there's
we can't do that
other.
on everything. We can't make everything. We're not an electrical component manufacturer, so
Right, yeah.
we can't make everything. But
I
yeah,
love those maverick type business guys that just like can do that, right? They just, I don't have this, I'm gonna make it myself,
yep,
like, right? Um, some stuff seems superfluous, like there was a, speaking of sandblasting, I'm not going to name names, but like there's a company out there that everybody is pretty familiar with that we buy a lot of powder from, and they did a video where you can they made, I don't know, I think they either buy it from somebody and then sell it on their website, or maybe they're making them now, I don't know, but it's basically like a canister tube with holes in it where you can like throw nuts and bolts and just all kinds of small parts to blast. Okay. And, they were showing on the video, like you just throw it in and then you take your blast hose and you just do, and you move it around and then it blasts all these parts. And my husband watched the video and he's like, dude, I could just go get some chicken wire, fold it in half, wire it shut, throw my, put my parts in there, throw it, like there are some things that, sound fancy, right? It's a fancy thing to get, right? And maybe if you don't know what you're doing, they might get some sales from it and stuff. But to be honest with you, the common sense seems, people are always going to go for the cheapest, not always, but like if it makes more sense to go to the Ace Hardware and pick up some chicken wire and do the same thing. It's just it's a lowest common denominator thing, right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking to myself, like, my goodness, how, I'm not saying it's an inefficient part, or an inefficient tool. It is, but when something else could be just as easily and more simply made, wouldn't the more natural thing is to do that? You know what I mean? Because it's, because he's already doing it that way.
Yeah. Yep.
So you have to be careful as a manufacturer, because you may think that your customer would appreciate that or know that, wow, this thing is so cool, right? But then there is this component of mystery that you don't really know until you know, right? And then at that point, how much have you spent in that innovation to get there? Yeah. And I hope it's not your part we're talking about. I was just like, oh shit, we're probably talking about something Brandon made. Oh God, it never ends on the podcast. But I guess, like it's not a bad thing. It's just that sometimes people will just go for this simpler, cheaper thing in the end, right? Like solve your own problems, right?
Exactly.
If that tube thing works for somebody and they want to buy it and put money towards it, it's not a very big thing. I don't know how much they're selling them for. It just kind of seems superfluous to a lot of people when they watched it. I've got some feedback from some others, and it was just like, what? Like. So, there's always that mystery of who is going to buy the product and will they appreciate the product, right?
Yeah.
Is it a painkiller or a vitamin, right? You always want to ask that. I'm always asking that around here. Is it a painkiller or a vitamin? If it's a vitamin, it's preventative. I might need it. I don't have to take it every day. If it's a painkiller, well, you're solving a huge problem, right? Stuff. So.
Yep.
Well, I think we've gotten some really good takeaways from here in terms of, what it can take to innovate and renovate your company through Made in America. And stuff. So I thank you so much for coming on today, Brandon. It's always good to see you. You're going to be coming up again. We're going to do another podcast. What are we doing on that one? That one, we should talk about that. That one's going to be what? What I forgot what we were talking about. We're going to
bringing your blasting operation in-house.
That's right. That's right. That's a good one.
That is a good one.
Yeah. And so we're going to record that on a different day, but it will be coming. I don't know what the episode will be, but or when we'll publish it, but it's coming soon. So we'll be seeing you soon. Wear a different t-shirt. No.
And then people have to figure out, is it a different day or did I just quick go and change my t-shirt?
Yeah, exactly. The mysteries behind the podcast.
Yeah.
Change your hairdo. It's more me. I got to change my hairdo. I'm the one that wears the same shirt every day. But anyways, always fabulous to have you on the show, Brandon. Thanks again for sharing your time with us. And, I really like the way that the podcast has expanded into more industrial. Like we first started just talking about solving everyday coder problems, and we're still doing that. We have our live show with the powder coders. We're interviewing guys in 6 or 7 or 8 guys in a show, and they're sharing their knowledge and their perspectives in a live show. I don't know if you know that, Brandon, but we kind of started that this year, and we're hoping to do 6 episodes per year to start with. The industry is behind us. They're giving away, they're donating and sponsoring the show. They're giving away prizes. It's just been an awesome kind of rally around custom coding and stuff like that. So there's always so much more to gain when you've got like 6 or 7 guys up on the show, and they're giving you, we're answering each one differently, like what their experience is and stuff. So it's really nice. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. And, the interviews are continuing on where, we're kind of getting into more industrial type interviews, like with your company, where we're kind of doing some broader industry topics and stuff. So I really like the way that the pace of the podcast is going, because we seem to be expanding our audience and offering more to the broader, like the different perspectives or the different components to powder coating, because there's always more than one. We've got the in the news segment, which is different. We've got the custom coder powder coating live show, and then we've got our still continuing on with excellent interviews from experts like you.
Well, thanks for having me on, and wish you luck with all the other endeavors. And you're going from Maui to the world.
Yeah, global.
Yep.
Well, let's get Titan selling some sandblasting equipment to China and some of the other in Europe and stuff. Let's make that happen.
Yeah.
Take this.
Yeah, more American flags on products in other countries. That's what we need.
Right. I know that's, it's just like, I know the world just rolls their eyes at us sometimes, because we're just so obnoxious that way. And we really are. I mean, we really are. When you go traveling in another country, you really kind of see a different perspective and stuff. And I go, yeah, I can see you why you kind of bitch and moan about us Americans, But the fact is, we're never recognized. We're always the country bumpkins or the dumb cousins or the prisoners that came to, the new America or whatever, right? Or the religious, the people wanting religious freedom, to make up the components of America. And that's fine, like it says, we'll take the people you don't want, right? And stuff, and we'll make the best of it. And it's that continued optimism that I love about America, even when, we're getting teased about our president and how he can't, he needs to wear a diaper and stuff like that. Right. And, I just, we're still okay. We're still people, and just our head of the state is not the only person in this country that can make a difference. Right. It can happen at Titan Abrasive, Yep.
Regardless who runs it, we're still the greatest country in the world.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
So, well, thanks again for coming on. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Head over to titanabrasive.com and check them out. Next time you want to buy some equipment, and you guys are all online and Facebook and all that too. So,
yep.
All right. Have a beautiful day, everybody. Aloha.